So, welcome everybody to our session, our interview with uh, students who have converted the top B schools from India. And today we have with us Aditya from IIM Ahmedabad, who is pursuing his MBA from Ahmedabad and is from the batch of 22-24. So, without any further ado, we'd like to welcome Aditya, and he's one of the dearest and closest friends of mine. So, welcome Aditya, and how's your day going?
Hi Akash, thanks for inviting me. Day is going fine. One of the few days where we have few number of sessions. Yeah, uh, we can get started.
Surely. Thank you for taking out time from your busy schedule. And so, jumping right to the first question. So could you give us a brief about your background profile and all?
Yeah, sure. I was born and brought up in Pune. I did my schooling over there. Post which I did my engineering from NIT Trichy. I'm a mechanical engineer. I majored in mechanical and minored in economics over there. Post which I have almost 2 years of work ex. So after my graduation, I joined Axis Bank in the role of a digital product owner. I worked there for around 6 months. And after that, I moved to ZS Associates in the role of business consulting associate. There, I worked for around 14 months. After that, I joined IIM Ahmedabad.
So basically, you have that typical GEM profile, right? General engineering male.
Yeah, pretty much.
How hard was it to get into IIM Ahmedabad, especially for GEMs?
Thankfully, so basically, this was my second CAT attempt. In last attempt, I got around 96, 97 percentile, and I could build up upon my foundation that I had laid for the last CAT prep, and thankfully, this time I got a pretty good percentile. In terms of prep, I think the prep is pretty intense, right? In terms of the interviews, there are a few things you have to cover, and so I had to put in the time. You have basically your three main parts, right? You have your work ex and acads, you have your like personality and HR questions, and you have your current affairs. So it was a little difficult to do the prep with your work. So especially because I was working in ZS and it's a consulting firm, and you know how work life is a little a little messy over there. So it becomes tough to take out time, but yeah, it's manageable in yet.
Yeah, so that's what I really wanted to ask you about. Many people are preparing for CAT while they're also working, right? So how did you manage your time while working as well?
Basically, as it was my second CAT attempt, I already had a strong foundation in terms of the concepts, so I didn't have to spend a lot of time on the concepts part. But what I focused on this time was, really understanding where I stand for each topic and each section, and then, giving enough practice in terms of sectional tests and mock tests. Second part that I'd say that I'd overlooked last time was, your exam attempt strategy. So this time I paid special attention to it, and what I ensured was I tried out like 2 to 3 strategies for each section. I gave like at least 2 3 sectional tests or mock tests for each of the strategy, and I saw what strategy was working for me. So that way, in a iterative way, I was able to land to a strategy which was personally suitable for me. So what I feel is a lot of candidates think there is one particular golden strategy that will work for everyone. That's not how it works. Based on your particular strengths and what your strengths and weaknesses are, you have to try out a few different strategies, and you have to figure out what works for you. So for that, I think sectional and mock tests become pretty important. In terms of interview prep, again, I would say you have to take out some time, especially for your acads and your current affairs, etc. In terms of your personality questions, HR questions, it's just a lot of introspection. You have to sit down, you have to write a lot of things. I would suggest write as much as possible, but I think we'll cover this in the later parts of the interview.
Right.
So taking out time, basically, my work used to start a little late at 11 o'clock in the morning, and it used to end depending on the workload. It could end at like 9:30 in the night, or even like 10, 11 in the night. So I used to try and get the most out of mornings. So I used to try and do at least 2 to 3 hours of prep in the morning, and in the night I used to try and do like 1 hour or so. And between work breaks, I used to try and read, your news and current affairs, etc. So that's something I managed to do.
Right. So covering the CAT part only. So we have three sections, right? QA and VILR and VRC, right? So as you are a engineering, you have a background in engineering, so I assume that you must have been pretty good with quants, right? So Were there any challenges which you faced with other sections, DILR or BRC?
So for me, actually, it was the reverse. So despite being an engineer, I wouldn't say I'm strong at quants. But I was comfortable with quants to a decent extent. Like it wasn't something I struggled with. But my forte was VRC, technically speaking. So VRC was something I was comfortable with, but I didn't. That's why I didn't need to spend a lot of time on VRC. But something I had to put in a lot of practice was both QA and LRDA. Quant is just, it's not tough, but you have to practice because there's a lot of syllabus to cover and there are a lot of types of questions you have to cover. So you have to put in the hours. LRDA is something which a lot of aspirants struggle with because after a point, like you learn the different types of questions. There are very few type of questions that you have, like arrangement question, matrix questions, your interpretation questions, etc. Right? Once you're familiar with all types of questions, there isn't a lot you can do apart from practicing a large number of sets. So that's where it becomes a little tricky. So this time my approach was that I'll expose myself to as many diverse set of problems as possible. And again, in DLR, the issue is, even if you let's say they give you those 4 sets to solve without any time restriction, there's a possibility you could solve all of them. But keeping your calm in that 40 minutes or 1 hour and picking the right sets, that's also a very important part. So apart from practicing a large number of sets, my focus was also on doing it in that restrictive time period. So I also focus a lot on giving sectionals and mocks so that I could achieve that LRDI set attempt strategy in particular time.
Right. So building on the same theme, the one question I had, during even my first CAT attempt, I sort of over attempted a lot of questions in each section. So, according to you, what should be the optimal number of questions one should attempt in each of the sections?
Again, I wouldn't say there's a particular magic number, right? So, for example, it depends on your strengths and weaknesses. For me, VRC, I wanted to maximize my score, so I tried to attempt all the questions in VRC. But again, let's say you're not that strong at VRC. Let's say you're good at RC, then limit your attempts to only RC. Limit your attempts to RC, and VA, whatever you feel you're confident about, just attempt those. So there is again not a magical number. In LRDA, you have to attempt at least one set correctly to cross the cutoff. And I think if you attempt one more set, you will cross your 90 percentile, 95 percentile. So but LRDA have to attempt at least one set correctly. But in LRDA, I don't think there's a point in trying to guess answers unless they are teacher type of questions. So if you feel there are TETA questions with very restricted options, you can just put a guess in. There's nothing to lose. Quant, I did struggle a little bit in the start in terms of maximizing my number of attempts, because I used to spend a lot of time on a particular question and then I wouldn't get the solution, so I had to leave that question. So that happens. So for that, I used to use that your ABC strategy. So basically, you attempt the paper in 3 rounds. You just keep going through question. Like you look at question 1, you see if it is easy and short. So you judge a question on 2 parameters. First is how complex the question is and how time consuming the question is. So a question could be pretty straightforward, but it could be very long. So in first round, you attempt only the questions which are easy and short. So you keep going. Let's say you look at the question 1, it does not fit the criteria, move to question 2. It fits the criteria, attempt it, move to question 3, and keep doing. So you reach the end of paper, then you again start from the first question. In second round, you attempt questions which are easy but long, or which could be short but you're not very sure about. And the questions you are very sure that are complex or not from your strong areas, you can leave them for the third round. So for me, that worked, attempting questions in 3 rounds. And quant, again, I don't remember the number of questions attempted, but if you use this strategy, you have to ensure that you attempt all the easy questions. Like you shouldn't leave any easy questions out of your attempt.
So even I got to know about this same strategy of ABC strategy from a coaching center during my second attempt, and it really came in handy during that time.
Yeah.
So basically what happens is people do spend a lot of time on hard questions and waste a couple of minutes, like more than 2 to 3 minutes on a question that way. So this is really helpful. So by the way, did you join any coaching given your busy schedule?
In my first attempt, I had joined coaching. I had joined there. Like the online version of it, they had like videos, they had study material and your sections, mock tests. In my second attempt, I didn't join the coaching. I had just joined so I joined time and IMS, like the mocks plus sectionals program. So one I had taken
Right.
the entire program where you get like topic test, sectional test mocks, and for other I've only taken the basic mock test wala program. So my goal was to expose myself to as many types of questions and mocks as possible in the second attempt, which I think was more than sufficient using 2 mock tests. And for concepts and all, whatever I hadn't covered in the first attempt or I was a little unsure about, I just used YouTube and other resources for that.
Right. So coming to the mocks part, how many mocks did you attempt during your whole preparation journey? And when it comes to mocks, how important is the analysis part of mocks?
Yeah, so I'd say in terms of how many mocks you should attempt, I would say at least 15 to 20 mocks is something you should target. That's the bare, I wouldn't say bare minimum, but yeah, that's the number you should target. And in terms of, I would say don't go overboard, don't try and attempt like 60, 70 mocks or 50, 60 mocks. And the second question you asked, that's more important, right? So mocks aren't something that you just keep on taking for the sake of it. Mocks are something which you should use as a mechanism to understand where you stand, what are your strengths and weaknesses, and what you need to work on. So after each mock, you have to do a thorough analysis. In analysis, you should cover, let's say you're starting with quant, for example, you should cover what are the questions you attempted. Were those like, did you cover all easy questions? First of all, that's something you should check. If you couldn't get an easy question, then you should sit and think about it. Why couldn't you get the question? Was it something from an area you didn't cover, or was it a question that was easy but you couldn't look at it because you had a lack of time, because you wasted a lot of time in the initial questions? So you need to figure out where you're going wrong. So your first goal should be, like for example in quant, it should be checking if you could attempt all easy questions. If not, then find a root cause behind it and then try to rectify it in the next attempt. So let's say for example in a paper you realize that your geometry questions, even the easy questions, you could not attempt. So don't take the second mock immediately after that, right? So give you some time, take a week or two. In that week, focus a lot on your geometry questions. Focus on building a foundation with at least the basics of geometry, and ensuring that you are able to do all the easy questions. So you can use your topic test, sectional test, whatever you want to use. And after that, so in the next mock, you should see a decent improvement. So that's the point of mocks. It's for improving on your past drawbacks or your whatever. So and second part in mocks also, as I already mentioned, is your exam attempt strategy. So if you have given a mock and you realize, let's say you are falling short on time, or you're not able to identify the correct DLR set to solve within those 40 minutes, then again you have to sit and think what is going wrong. Is there some other strategy you can utilize? So you can talk with your friends or talk with your coaching profs, etc., and try and figure out what strategy could work for you, and then try that strategy in the next mock, for example. So mock should be used as a corrective mechanism rather than something you just keep blindly giving, and give yourself enough time between mocks in the initial phases to take corrective action. So yeah.
Right. So we'll be concluding the section of CAT preparation with just one last question from my end. That how important is the mindset of a person on the D-Day? Like for me, what worked was I went ahead and I was literally like in a chill mode when I gave my second attempt as compared to the first attempt, and it really worked in my way, right? So how important is the mindset for a person while giving CAT?
So yeah, that's something I don't like about CAT is, it boils down to one particular day. So you could have had a phenomenal preparation phase, you could have great mock scores, but if something goes wrong on the main day and you're not able to maintain the composure, that's it for you, because CAT just happens once a year. It's not like GE, which you can give like 2 or 3 times. So for me, what worked again was the same. I had a nothing to lose mindset, because I already had a good job, and I liked my work. So I went to the mindset that even if it goes wrong, there's nothing to lose. I can always attempt it in the next year, right? So basically again the same thing as you. Like I went in with a thoda chill attitude and nothing to lose attitude, and I'm like, I'm just gonna give my best. And one thing I had kept in my mind was, even if things aren't going according to my desire, I'll still stick to my plan. So whatever happens, whatever strategy I had formed and whatever strategy I had practiced for the last whatever 1-2 months, I have to stick to the strategy despite whatever happens. So let's say even if in LRDI I could not get one set even after let's say 20 minutes, I'm not going to change my strategy. I'm going to still stick to my strategy and try and work it out. So those two things I would say, nothing to lose mindset and sticking to a strategy which you have practiced over time.
Right. That was a really great point which you mentioned over there. And also, I mean, that CAT, you have only one attempt for CAT each year. So basically, did you give any other entrance exams like NMAT or maybe SNAP?
So technically, I did not give any exams because as I said, I had a good job and I was certain about what college I want to go to. So I'm like, if it hadn't worked out in this year, then maybe next year I would have attempted a few additional exams. But this year I only attempted CAT.
Okay. So which all colleges were you targeting through CAT? I mean, was it just IIM Ahmedabad? Like, I know many people over here who just, aim for either for A, B, C and the Holy Trinity or nothing else. So
I was, I appeared for the interviews for all the Blackie colleges. So I think I was fine with till like L or K. I would have joined maybe. But again, the top target was ABC obviously, but I was open till let's say Lucknow or Kozhikode.
Right. So now moving to the AWT and PI prep section. Basically, firstly, I would like to start with your work ex. So what was your basic motivation to go for MBA? Like you had a consultancy job at CS, so I mean that is a dream of people who get into top B schools to get into CS or maybe such consultancy roles. So what was the basic motivation to pursue MBA after that?
I think it was the opposite for me, right? So basically, during my engineering, I had realized it pretty soon that I don't want to work in the core sector, and that's when I started exploring other things. I started with like a little bit of stock market and finance. I tried out sales and marketing. I did an internship in sales and marketing. I joined a few clubs in the college which were aligned to sales and marketing. Then I discovered case competitions. That's when I was first exposed to consulting as such, right? So for me, it was more about trying out things before going for an MBA. So I am sure what I want to do after the MBA. Because let's say, if I had joined MBA straight out of the college and I got into consulting, but after 1 or 2 years in consulting, I realized it wasn't for me, so I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to get some experience beforehand to see if it suited me. So straight out of college, basically we didn't have a lot of consulting companies coming into our college. We had like 2 or 3 firms coming for the placements, and unfortunately I couldn't make it to the last round. So but I got into Axis in a product role, and product was also something I wanted to explore. So I'm like, let's give it a shot, let's see if it is fit for me. So I worked there for 6 odd months, and I didn't really I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy the work, but I still wasn't satisfied with it. So I thought, maybe I should try consulting before going for an MBA and see which is better fit for me. So I tried. That's why I moved to ZS, and consulting was something I really enjoyed at ZS for whatever 1.5 years I worked over there. So that gave me another level of confidence that whatever I'm going to an MBA for is something that is aligned with my strengths and aligned with my lifestyle or work lifestyle that is suited for me. So that was the main motivation of going for WorkX, understanding if MBA and what I want to do in MBA after the MBA is a good fit for me.
Right. So coming to the PI experience of yours at IIM Ahmedabad. So one thing which IIM Ahmedabad does different from other colleges, they do qualify to some BC now centers for your GDPI, right? For your AWT and PI. So how was the whole experience for you?
So in general, they manage it pretty well. So you are called to a video conferencing center. So you have 2 things, right? You go there, you wait in the start, and then you have your AWT. So that happens was you're called into a room with I think 7-8 other people. They give you like your paper and pen, and they give you a topic, and then you get whatever your 15-20 minutes to write the AWT. After that, again, they give you slots for the interviews. Then it depends on your luck what slot you get, because some people had to wait like for 3-4 hours before the slot came. So just pray you get a earlier slot. So I had like a mid slot. So you have to wait for that time. So that is a little anxious phase. we have to wait. But again, there are people around you, so you mostly chat with people, you talk with them, you ask them their experiences. So the atmosphere is not that anxious either. You can talk to people and lighten it a bit. So after that, you go into the room. There are like these two big screens, and there's a camera. You have to just sit. There's a chair. You have to sit there, and it's basically like your Zoom, but just on a big screen. So it's something we are used to by now. And then the interview is pretty much similar to what other institutes take.
So coming to the AWT part initially, do you remember your topic which you got for AWT?
To be honest, no, but I remember it was very abstract. So it was like extremely abstract topic, a little philosophical if I remember correctly. But yeah, so when I got the topic, I don't remember the topic to be honest, but it was very abstract and philosophical. So I didn't think through a lot. I just tried to understand what the topic meant to an extent, and I understood it's pretty open-ended in that sense. So I just tried, given its AWT, you had to basically try and show some logical chain of thought and some analytical chain of thought, right? So that was my attempt at it, like whatever I could think and relate to in my life and in general. So I just tried to pen down those thoughts, and thankfully it worked, I guess.
So abstract topics are a pain, right? So the thing is, for other topics which might be from current affairs or any other topics, so for those kind of topics, did you prepare a strategy? Like, there are certain studies like pestle and all, like people do format their answers in such a manner. So did you have any strategy in place or any resources which you use for preparation for AWT specifically?
So I think for something like AWT and VAT, you get enough resources. You just Google and you get a lot of articles explaining how to approach it. So that should not be a big issue. But I didn't have any frameworks in mind. So even if you do prepare frameworks, I'd say don't write it as a framework. Use that framework to frame your thoughts and then put your thoughts down. But don't put, like, for example, if you're using Pestle, which is a pretty good framework, don't write it as PES and don't write points for each. Just frame your thoughts. Think of what out of all the is political relevant to the scenario, is economic relevant, whatever is relevant, just pick that and write it in a logical way in an essay format. But yeah, don't apply the framework blindly to the thing. But yeah, I didn't have a framework as such. I had practiced a few topics and gotten it reviewed by a few seniors who were already in Ahmedabad and a few other colleges. So my focus was just on keeping it as logical as possible.
Okay, right. So now coming to the PI part. So basically, how was your experience? Like, I know many people who had a stress PI, or some people had a really chill PI. For me, it was basically quite chill, right? I was as you mentioned, I was the last person to get into the PI room. Okay, so how was it for you?
So for me, I think it was pretty straightforward. It wasn't stress interview, thankfully. That was Bangalore for me. But Ahmedabad, I remember we had two panelists, and both of them were comparatively young. And the interview was also pretty chill. So most of my interview was, apart from your basic tell me about yourself and all, it was surrounded around my work. So they asked me about my work, what I do. Then they asked me to talk about one of my projects, and so we just had a conversation around the project, and they did go a little deep into it. So whatever I was talking about, they had a few follow-up questions in terms of why did you do this particular thing, what kind of data you use, what kind of tools you use to analyze that data, could you have done it this way, which would have been better, right? Things like that. So most of my interview was surrounding around my work, and then I also remember I had talked about, so they also asked me about my hobbies or whatever I've been doing apart from work. So I talked a bit. So I had an interest in crypto back then. I had also researched a lot about it. So we had a discussion on crypto, and they had a few questions about the applicability of it, and will it really be revolutionizing and things like that. So again, in that also they asked a few follow-up questions to check if I've actually read enough about it, or am I just trying to portray surface level knowledge. So yeah, that was my Ahmedabad interview. I would say it was pretty chill. It wasn't very long either, and it was pretty fine. Apart from the follow-up questions, it wasn't really a stress interview.
Right. So how long did the interview last for you?
If I remember correctly, it was around 20 minutes, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, 20-25 minutes.
So yeah, I guess IIM Ahmedabad interviews do last for 15 to 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So one thing which I really wanted to ask you, apart from hygiene questions and questions related to your work, etc., did they ask you questions related to your educational background, or maybe regarding from your engineering courses at all?
So in the Ahmedabad interview, I had like 2 questions from mechanical, but thankfully they were like very basic questions. So they asked me 2 questions on like I think IC engines, and they were very very basic questions. So I was able to comfortably answer them. I think because I had 2 years of work ex, they didn't focus a lot on your academic questions. But if you have less than 1 year of work ex, then definitely prepare properly. I had prepared properly, also. But if you have less than 1 year of work ex, I would recommend you prepare properly. You at least have 2 subjects which you study in depth, because generally they'll ask you what's your favorite subject, and they'll try to ask you questions on that. And apart from the favorite subjects, also have at least a very foundational understanding of other subjects as well. Like if, for example, if you're studying mechanical engineering, you should know what are the laws of thermodynamics. Like that's non-negotiable. You should know what is an IC engine and things like that. So yeah, but yeah, for me it was pretty chill.
Right. So as you mentioned earlier that your IMB interview was quite they were grading you on certain parts. So for the CAT aspirants who will be appearing for their PIF in a couple of months or in a couple of weeks now, so what should be their mindset, or maybe how should they strategize to tackle such interviews, such stress interviews,
So
right?
yeah, so see, stress interviews, there are, I think, what they're trying to assess is uh, not what you answer, basically to an extent what you answer, but it's more about if you're able to stay calm and if you're able to stay composed and give coherent answers to their questions, right? So for example, for in my case, it was a very senior prof from IIM Bangalore who was taking the stress interview, and it was around my work. So because I'm in consulting, it was about he was trying to provoke me into saying, he was like, you don't add value to your clients. Consultants are just it's just a surface level knowledge you guys put, and you just loot your clients and things like that. So and he didn't want to be convinced. Basically whatever I said, he had a counter to that. So what works in general in these cases is, even if you are a little stressed and sad, don't portray it on your face. Always keep a smiling face and keep answering to the best of your possibilities. After a point, after a point, it came to a state where I just said, sir, I put forward all the points that I had, and we do add value to our clients. You can, if you want, I'll give you their contact number. You can contact and ask them if you add value. So you have to be a little humorous about it as well. Basically, don't get don't start fumbling and all. So for that, I'll say practice a few mock interviews with people and ask them to make it stress interview. So that's how you will maybe tackle the situation. But yeah, it'll come with practice.
Yeah, I feel being a bit humorous and lighting up a mood a bit really helps over there. So we are already overshooting our time. So I just have one last question for you. So I mean, are there any last minute tips for CAT aspirants who will be appearing for their PI soon or AWT soon? Do you have any recommendations for them?
I'll cover a few main points which are non-negotiable. First of all, like have very strong story, like why you want to do an MBA and how it relates to your long-term goals. Don't have a very surface level story. Make it a little more personalized, so it should be convincing. Secondly, have a very solid understanding of your work ex and your ACADS. So as I said, like you should know the basics of your ACADS for sure. That's non-negotiable, and you should know your work in depth. Like you should be able to have a conversation about at least one project in depth if required. And in terms of current affairs, it's fine if you don't know about one or two things that the interest talk about, but at least know all the major things. Like for example, the budget has been discussed recently, right? So you should know about budget. It's again, if you don't know about budget at all, then it will reflect very poorly. So yeah, I think these would be like the hygiene checks that you should have for the interview, and obviously go there, be confident, keep smiling, have fun.
Okay, thank you Aditya for taking out time for the interview, and I hope these tips were really insightful for the people. At least it was insightful for me. And so all the best to people, to all the aspirants who are appearing for BOT and PI in coming weeks. Thank you Aditya.
Thanks Akash. Have a good day.
Yeah, same to you.